What do you do when your situationship ends and you feel like you don't have anything to show for it? Today, we're going to talk about how to heal this particularly painful type of heartache and what to do so that you can move on. Hi, love. I'm Carisa Montooth, sixth generation energy healer, love coach, and creator of the Soul Love Method, helping high vibe women heal their hearts and attract new love. And today, what we're going to look at is how to heal from a situationship so that you can move forward into healthy, happy, committed love that is satisfying for you. So I'm going to do a little bit of generalizing here based on my experiences working with hundreds of people as a love coach, and share with you that what I've noticed about men and women, cis men and cis women, is that they tend to look at relationship breakups very differently, especially if it is a situationship or any kind of a long-term relationship. If it's an amicable breakup, men will usually look at that relationship and think something along the lines of, and again, I'm generalizing here, something along the lines of, well, she's a good person, it just didn't work out for us, but I hope that she has a good life and that she ends up really happy. If it was an amicable, even if it was an amicable breakup though, for women, we will often think in terms of wasted time. So we will feel like, well, he wasted X number of years of my life that I will now never get back. And this is particularly true for women who want to have children, for women who want to create families, and we're hoping that this relationship would be the foundation for that in their lives. So Alison Armstrong, who is an author and a relationship coach, talks about this having something to do with biology, that this may be rooted in biology, because she suggests that since women have a childbearing window of time, right, where it's like we can have kids up to a certain point, and men have more of a horizon of time because they can father children up until they die. Time means something different to us. And the thing about this is that in a breakup situation, it's very, very difficult for us. It's very difficult for women to understand that men just see time in such a fundamentally different way and are not trying to take away or rob us of or cheat us of time that is very precious to us. And it's very difficult for men to look at that situation and realize that time is so much more precious to us for those reasons. We're looking through completely different filters and expecting the other person to understand us completely. And that's just not how that works. So whether you have found that to be true, you may notice that that is a difference in the way that men and women look at that time after a relationship when you break up. The thing about it is that, you know, a situationship is a particularly difficult type of a relationship anyway, because there's usually a component of embarrassment or shame. Because what it means is that if you're calling something a situationship rather than a relationship, what it means is that the feelings are there and the expectation of commitment is there, but the commitment maybe has not been made official or it is not public, and so it's very difficult to grieve something that you feel like you never actually had, or you never got to experience the fullness of something. And you may feel a sense of embarrassment that you were part of something that that didn't become official, or that didn't become what you really wanted it to be and what you had hoped for it to be. So there's a very special there's an especially painful feeling to a breakup in a situationship. So that's why we have to kind of approach it differently and talk about it a little bit differently. So what do we do when we have a situationship that breaks up? How do we deal with that pain, and how do we deal with the embarrassment part of that and the shame part of that? Well, we have to do two things. First, we need to address the pain. We need to deal with the pain so that we can have some rest and some relief. And the second thing that we need to do is we need to actually address the damage that was done so that we don't bring it forward with us into our new relationships. So let's look first at how do we ease the pain. We actually have physical pain and inflammation as a result of a breakup, and specifically a situationship, because there's this component of embarrassment and shame to that. So research shows us that when we experience shame and guilt during a breakup, it leads to actual inflammation in our bodies, especially if we're blaming ourselves for that situation. So some things that we can do to address that, we can have a hot bath with Epsom salts and lavender oil or eucalyptus oil. Those are aromatherapy oils that really help with inflammation. Another thing we can do is we can drink chamomile tea. That helps to lower inflammation in the body. And we can get extra rest, because extra rest helps us to lower the cortisol, lower the levels of cortisol in our body. So it actually, and cortisol increases the inflammation in our body. So when we do these things, we are actually supporting our physical body in healing from this emotional pain that's been inflicted on us. Another thing we can do is look at the actual emotional impact of that. When you feel alone, your body's levels of dopamine and serotonin and oxytocin actually go down. And when you feel, and that impacts your emotional state. So right now, it's kind of difficult for us to do things like get massages or get hugs with our friends. And especially if we don't have someone in our household whom we can hug. If we don't have a roommate that, it's safe for us to hug, or family members that we live with or something like that. So it can be very difficult. So one of the things that we can do is actually, this is why so many people get pets during this time, because even cuddling with a pet is good for us in terms of increasing dopamine and serotonin and oxytocin. Another thing that we can do to handle the emotional impact of it is that we can cry. Let yourself cry. Let all of it come up. Let it all be released from your body. Crying is okay. And if you feel like, well, I can't cry right now because I've got stuff to do, it's going to sound corny, but make an appointment to sit with your sadness and let it come up and be released. Because if you do that, sometimes you'll find that it actually does wait until you have your appointment to sit down and deal with it, and then it can all come out. There's also a mental impact to a breakup, right? There are often really incessant thoughts about the breakup where they come up without you feeling like you have any control over it, and feeling like you can't really stop them from happening. One of the things that's helpful for this is for you to actually create healthy distractions for yourself. Give your mind something else to focus on and to chew on. And one way to do that is to really just pull out your calendar and start scheduling things into your calendar that are things that you can do every week. Wellness classes, even if they're online classes like yoga or something like that, that's helpful for you. If it's a good time for therapy, there are a lot of online therapy options if you can't leave your house. Time with friends, even in the form of like a Zoom call or a standing Zoom lunch with certain friends. And then self-care. That's really important also for your mental impact. And self-care for addressing the mental impact of the breakup. And self-care can be in the form of things like having positive statements around you so that you see them and you're feeding your mind good things. So that is something that can really help you with your mental state after a breakup. So in the first few weeks after a breakup, that's what you're going to focus on really, is dealing with easing the pain, the physical pain, the emotional pain, and the mental pain of the breakup. Then you're going to be able to move on to dealing with healing the damage, healing the wounds that were left behind so that you aren't bringing them into new relationships. Because that usually has the impact of attracting in more of the same, more of the heartache that we had before. Because when we're in that energy, it feels, other people who are in that energy feel familiar to us. And so we mistake that for chemistry, and we think that because they have the same wounds as we do, there must be some kind of, we feel like there's a connection between us and them that is significant. And really, it's just a familiarity that's based on having the same wounds, right? Nothing to build a relationship on. So when you are feeling a bit calmer and it doesn't hurt quite as much and you're ready to think about healing, we want to address the energy of these wounds. So there are basically 5 types of energy that are left after a breakup. You can have one, or you can have all 5, or any combination of these. But I call these the 5 breakup wounds. And the first breakup wound is anger. If you have an anger breakup wound, that's when you're saying lots and lots of those things like, he doesn't deserve to be happy until he pays for what he did to me. Or things like, he wasted this amount of my time. He wasted 10 years of my life. He wasted, 5 years of my life, whatever that is. The thing about anger, even if it's righteous anger, is that righteous anger corrodes the vessel. If it is held inside and it doesn't motivate us into healthy movement, into taking some kind of a corrective action in our lives. And we really have to also watch out, because sometimes what happens with anger is that since we live in a patriarchal society where people are threatened by a woman's anger because it's powerful to create change, we end up adapting a lot of times unconsciously to that by internalizing our anger and having it show up as sadness instead, because people are not threatened by our sadness. It's like nobody's afraid of a sad woman, but they are afraid of an angry woman because she's powerful. And that's something that we deal with in a patriarchal society. So you may find that you may seem very sad and you're holding on to this sadness and you're like, ever since this thing happened, I've been sad, and I've been sad for months. And you might dig a little deeper and find that you're actually very angry and you're afraid of expressing that anger because you've been taught that it will be destructive. So that's how the anger wound can sometimes manifest as sadness. Another wound that you may be dealing with is the confusion breakup wound. If you're dealing with a confusion breakup wound, then you say a lot of things like, I just wish I could understand why he did XYZ, because you feel like it would bring you some sense of closure. Hint, it won't. It really won't. It doesn't work like that. And also this confusion wound is very sneaky because, you don't actually receive closure until you don't care about it anymore. That's sort of a universal prank. I don't know why the universe is built that way, but it's really like as soon as you stop caring, that's when you get the closure that you feel like would have helped you a year ago, And this particular wound is very sneaky. The confusion wound is very sneaky because it makes you doubt your own intuition and your own judgment going forward into your future relationships. If you're dealing with a shame breakup wound, which is very, very common at the end of a situationship, then even your very closest friends may not know the specifics of your relationship or your breakup because you tolerated things or you enthusiastically, signed on for things that you are too embarrassed to tell them about. And the thing about shame is that shame thrives in silence. So the more we don't talk about our experiences of shame with people that we can trust, who've earned the right to hear from us about these things, then the more the shame grows. And it keeps us isolated. It keeps us from reaching out. Another breakup wound that you may be dealing with is the grief breakup wound. The grief breakup wound is you grieving for the breakup. You may be grieving for the person whom you thought your partner was. You may be grieving for the potential that you thought the relationship had that won't ever be realized now. You may be grieving for the life that you had together or the life you wanted to have together, or even just the fact that you're not getting those texts throughout the day anymore. You're not getting those emails throughout the day anymore. You may be grieving for the years that you gave the relationship. You may be grieving for the companionship, even if it wasn't as, satisfying as you wanted it to be, at least there was that person who was texting you. At least there was that person who cared about what you were going through in a way that felt comforting to you. So that is the grief breakup wound. And finally, we get to the fear breakup wound. If you have a fear breakup wound, then you've probably given yourself lots of legit sounding reasons why you don't want to date. Reasons like, right now I need to focus on my career, or right now I need to wait until my kids need me less, or I need to wait until I lose weight. And the truth is that you're really just terrified that the same thing is going to happen to you over and over and over again, or that maybe there's nobody else out there for you, and you are afraid that there's something really awful that is true about you that people are going to find out, or you're afraid that this is now just a pattern. This is just the way that your life is because men always cheat, or men are always intimidated by me, or no one ever wants me, that kind of a thing. The good news about all these fears, or all of these breakup wounds rather, is that they're so common that I've actually written a book for you called The Heartache Cure, which you can get at theheartachecure.com. That shows you exactly which wound you're dealing with and how to heal that wound. So if you go to theheartachecure.com, you can get that book right now for free, and you can find out which breakup wound you're dealing with and how to heal it. So now I want to hear from you. Which of these techniques, which of these strategies do you think you're going to use to help you ease the pain of this breakup? And which breakup wound do you think you might already have? Is there a wound that you think that you already have that you can recognize where the description of that really resonated for you? Let me know in the comments. And if you found that this video was really helpful for you, please like and subscribe. And remember that self-love is the best love. So love you first and love you best, and all other kinds of love will flow to you. Promise. Take care.